Good afternoon from our studio in Athens. We're not in Thessaloniki, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. We're here to talk about the pandemic itself and literature and creativity. So it's four of us right now, Amanda Michalopoulou, who's next to me, Andriana Martinez, who's going to be organizing and orchestrating the whole event about the world of yesterday and world of today, and also Santiago Roncaglio, who's going to be talking with us also. So good afternoon from me. I'm going to give over now the word to actually Amanda Michalopoulou.
Hi, hello from me too. I think I'm not going to talk right now. I'm just going to ask Andriana Martinez to organize us, the four of us. We are like a small orchestra and we need her right now to start discussing.
Well, good afternoon, buenas tardes, kalispera. For interpretation reasons, we are going to speak in English, so we are all in the same page. We, of course, for all the Greek public, we have interpretation. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Santiago, thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Kalia, for being today as well, and for making a dream come true. I have to explain you a little bit about our book, The World of Yesterday, The World of Tomorrow, o El Mundo de Ayer, El Mundo de Mañana. This is a book that came out as an idea in March. We were getting ready for our annual festival Lea, which was going to take place in June, in Athens, in Thessaloniki, and in Lefkada, as every year for the last 12 years. But then all of a sudden the world changed, and we had to reinvent ourselves. But we wanted to make sure that we would leave something written about this pandemic and about this world that we are living. So all the writers that have been in our festival and the ones that were going to come this year to Lea were invited to participate with the text, either poem or a narrative text about what we are living. And we are very lucky and actually very grateful to having 60 writers that supported us. And they are from all over Latin America, Spain, Portugal, and Greece. So if you allow me, I would like to read the names because it's very important for us to have them here. So their names are Héctor Abad Faciolince, Sandra Baquedano, Felipe Benítez Reyes, Piedad Bonet, Patricio Briquel, Gabriel Calderón, Javier Cercas, Elsa Cruz, Alonso Cueto, Rosario Dacuña, Alexis Díaz Pimienta, Lena Divani, Ifigenia Dumi, Cecilia Udave, Quique Ferrari, Carlos Fonseca, Ilias Frankakis, Jorge Galán, Santiago Gamboa, Ana Estela González, Héctor Aquiles González, Jorge Fernández, Fernando Iwasaki, Stavros Hatsis, Nikos Chrysos, Eduardo Lucena, Mijalis Malandrakis, Ernesto Mayo, Álvaro Malnierca, Mikos Mantis, Petros Marcaris, María Martínez Bautista, Elena Medel, Sara Mesa, Amanda Michalopoulou, Rafael Nadal, Manuel Orestes Nieto, Irónico Pulo, Pedro Laya, Onzaki, William Ospina, Leonardo Padura, Yanis Palavoz, Constantinos Palolobos, Kalia Papadaki, José Luis Peixoto, Juan Vicente Piqueras, Vicente Quirarte, Santiago Roncagliolo, Francisco Segovia, Niketas Siniosoglu, Ramón Talavera, Leonardo Tonus, Juan Gabriel Vázquez, Pedro Viguña, Juan Villoro, Costas Brajnos, Carmen Yáñez y Carlos Sanón. As you can see, we have 54 writers and 6 writers that are part of the public of Festival Lea, and they were the winners in Spanish and in Greek for the micro stories, mini stories contest that we made in June. So we had all this material, and we were again, we had the honor and the wonderful surprise of having the support of Castagnotis publishers. And it is becoming a real book, which will be in the libraries of Greece from December. We have behind a group of a big team that is working for this, and we have translators, and I will name them as well. They are Ifigenia Dumi, Cleopatra Eletroviari, Anastasia Yalamtsi, Alexandra Golfinopoulos, Stavros Hatsis, Aspasia Kambili, Maria Karali, Aliki Manola, Nikos Manousakis, Pedro Olaya, Konstantinos Paleologos, Nana Papanikolaou, Nikos Pratsinis, Vitor Vicente, Eleni Vlaho, and Chrysou Laxeni. So it is a huge team that worked behind the scenes, and this book is an expression of the feelings of so many people all over the world that is happening now. So today, we invited Santiago and Amanda and Kalia to talk about the book, but also to talk about how it inspired you. Unfortunately, Jose Luis Peixoto, who's not here, is not here today because he's not feeling well. So we hope that he gets very, very well soon, and we can have a conversation with him later on. So before starting, and before giving you the word, I would like to ask you, the writers, because you are the soul of this book, something very about the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic. So what's your take on this new condition in social, political, or cultural level? You can please feel free to approach the issue from the perspective that you prefer. Do you think that this pandemic or this insecurity that almost the whole planet shares highlights something about the world that we are living in? Amanda, would you like to start with this?
Sure. I think insecurity is a human condition. What the situation highlights is that we live in an insecure condition, something that we know when we feel free to explore what it means to be human, when we lose something we love, when we are in front of death or separation or alienation. I think deep down in our soul we know what human condition is. The strangest thing about this situation is that we realize it simultaneously, all of us, in the whole planet. It doesn't have to do with our class, our condition, our age, our profession, anything. I mean, it's everywhere. And in a way, it feels better than if it was happening only in one part of the planet. I think it may sound egoistic what I say now, but what I mean is that we feel the same, and usually we don't feel the same towards big problems. There were wars all around the world that they affected a special place on the planet. And then we show our empathy, we may write a reportage in a newspaper about it, or talk about it for a while, and then we forget we are not a part of the problem. What changes now, and for me this is very important, and this is what I would like to address, is that we all part of the problem. So when we read the news about how many deaths there are today or yesterday, they are deaths in our country, in countries around us, or very far away. And so I think this brings us closer together as humanity, and it urges us to ask certain questions that we don't like to think about. We usually prefer to hide them and think about it when someone dies in our family or someone we love is away. And yeah, I think I will leave it to that for the moment.
Kalia?
Well, I have to say, you know, it really shows how vulnerable we are, and we never thought we were, how ephemeral things are, and yet how easily we adapt to any kind of new situation. And I think the first wave of the pandemic was a different case, really. It was a new thing for all of us. We actually felt like it was some kind of a pause that we needed, you know, personally speaking. We never had the experience of such a thing like the older generations. Yet the second wave of the pandemic is totally different. You start thinking about the big questions, as Amanda said, and you personally, we lost a very close family friend, so the perspective totally changes. You know, fear is vivid. You know, before it was far away, now it's coming nearer and nearer, and yet humanity manages to withstand. Because life goes on, and that's what it matters, you know, in times of death, of sickness, life still goes on. And I think that's the most important we need to keep thinking about.
Santiago.
Hi. Well, thank you for a beginning, for this invitation. I am having lots of problems with sound to listen to my partners, so I will maybe repeat all they said because I listen in a cut way. But I would think that I have seen like two changes in many levels. One is the personal. In my case, and people around me, we have been lucky and privileged and not having serious health problems, and we have learned to. We have been forced to learn to enjoy the very little things that maybe we had forgot. We just walking around the neighborhood or by the beach or reading a book or sometimes when you can, when it's open, going to cinema I remember because I was all my life going to cinema all weeks and I just had forgotten how wonderful is the moment when there's a new reality in front of you, and I had forgotten this magic of this kind of stuff. So since I have not big problems, I had learned to enjoy. I could live and we could live and talk about that with my friends. We could live with less, paying less and enjoying things which are not so far or so expensive, and that's a lesson. That's an interesting lesson. And in the personal way, I don't know how many people feel this way. It's different if you had not a hospital close from you, you know, but we could enjoy this way. And in a more global point of view, I was impressed that for the first time in life, the whole planet is in the same fight. Not one against each other, but like everybody trying to solve one thing. We have all the same problem. And it's something very strange that never happened before. Because you used to just stop the problems by cutting the connection with the people with the problems. You can see it with immigration, with economy. Or you just make a wall between the rich and the poor, and that problem is just for the poor. But now, each time that there is somebody with the virus, you can get the virus. I mean, all the effort must be to cover all the planet, everybody in the planet. And that may be coming from Peru, as I come, there are many places where there was no guy to put the vaccine before. And that now there's an obligation that everybody can get a vaccine. I'm an optimist guy, which is a mistake, I'm sure, but I feel very interesting things that could happen with this new feeling that for you to be fine, everybody must be fine. I want to think that could be a good effect on this nightmare in the end.
Yes, I agree. You are now living in Barcelona, right? And so tell us about the quarantine that you're living and the toque de queda, which I don't know how to say in English.
Curfew. We had a curfew from 10 o'clock p.m. Until the next morning, and restaurants and bars are seriously limited by time or people that they can have. And it's deeply boring. in this part of the world, I guess it's the same for Greece. Lots of the things people enjoy, I would say, in the Mediterranean countries, as much as I know, and the Latin American countries, it's we have a Latin culture, the whole of it. It's very much about joy of life. We discuss, we scream to each other when we discuss, we dance, because we have good weather, so we can go outside. We enjoy the streets. We enjoy to go into a restaurant, to talk to each other. For me, from my privilege, I repeat, point of view, the most damned thing in this pandemic is pleasure of living. This is against eating together, against singing, against hugging each other, against talking to each other, and especially to unknown people. So that's the feeling of Catalonia, out from the numbers, out from the hospital part, is the sadness. Is how complicated it is getting to be happy, to do the things you took for granted you would have your whole life, to be happy.
But maybe that makes you also understand and love more when you will be able to do it again. You will be able to value it a little bit more. Amanda and Kalia, what do you think about this?
Personally, I already value it much more than I used to. To talk personally, yes, for me also the first lockdown was like an exploration of things that I missed in my life, a slower rhythm of life, to enjoy my family life, to enjoy the garden we have. We are blessed with a nice garden, small garden. But the second lockdown, which is for us also combined with a curfew, our curfew starts at 9 and finishes at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's close to Barcelona, more or less. But it's more austere in the sense that all the bars and the restaurants are closed. So the only solution to be around people is a walk, just to get a coffee and walk. And this made me realize that I'm a different person from the person I thought I was. I thought what was most important for me was to be alone in my room and write. And now I realize that an important part of the day, especially when the sun comes out, is to go out and look at people, just look at people and smile at people. It may sound ridiculous, but I realize I'm a social being for the first time in my life. Just being around other people is almost enough, just to be sure that they are somewhere, they are around, they are walking as I walk. So if I understand it well and you ask about the personal experience, this is my personal experience, that when all this nightmare stops, I would like to invite people more, to be with people more, to ask people more questions that I always asked in my mind, but literally ask them now. And I started already from people I don't know. For instance, when I go to get bread or get a coffee, I have this kind of conversations I never had. I think my character changed a little bit. I talk more than I used to talk. And I'm more inventive with questions, like everyday questions, that lead to a real conversation. And this is like a big, big thing for me.
This week we had here, now I'm listening to you, okay, I was in the wrong microphone. But this week they opened bars and restaurants here in Barcelona. And I've been all days with friends, and we suddenly realized we are shouting when we talk. We are so desperate to be in a restaurant talking that we are getting a bit noisy, as we were never before.
And Kalia, how are you living the quarantine and the curfew?
Well, I realized we were in a different phase with Santiago. For us, nothing is open, so we pretty much go to work if you don't work through Zoom, which I find quite annoying, personally speaking, because it gets tiring after a point being all the time in front of a computer. And there is this notion about writers being solitary and working alone at home, and it's true, but a big part of the day is also outside, observing people and living your everyday life, and that's what we actually miss. And also traveling, Well, I'm from Thessaloniki, and I haven't had the chance to go up north for the past almost a year. My family lives up there, and I haven't seen them in a year. When I was studying in the States many years ago, that was about the time every Christmas I used to go to Thessaloniki and hang out. Now it's the same thing once again, and yet it's only 500 kilometers away. So, and we grow older, and I guess that's where fear is. If I were 20 or 19, maybe this whole thing would be a different scenario. But as you grow older, you realize, how valuable is what we had and what we have, and you figure out ways to make the most out of it.
Well, you really surprised me, because at the beginning of the pandemic in March, many of my friends, writers, were telling me, no, this is very good for me because I can sit and I can concentrate and I don't have to travel, and I can be, and I'm able to write a lot. And this is like the paradise for a writer. But then now, I see you that you really miss going out and seeing friends and being social. So explain me a little bit of this.
Paradise itself should last no more than 2 weeks. 2 weeks is holidays. After 2 weeks, every paradise is hell.
Exactly.
If it's the same paradise all day, that is the hell. But I have my parents the other side of the ocean, and they are old, especially my father. And we had all this connection, thinking, well, who knows what can. So sometimes he has problems of health, and you are not there. By the other side, I would say that this is creating new forms of communication. My father is an old politician who loved to conspire everywhere, to meet friends, have political discussions, have plans. And suddenly he was, because of his health, well, he was confined before of this year because he couldn't go out so much. He's in a wheelchair, he has lots of problems to move his body. But his mind is perfect, so he has opened a Facebook, and now he's more active than ever in the last years because he makes communications, political communications, he writes a column, he makes video blogs, and he's in connection with all these people talking about politics. He has his own social network somehow, and that's good for him. And I also have discovered that creatively, this year has been, I've been discovering screenwriting with many teams, especially for TV or cinema. Projects are a team building stories. You talk with the director, you talk with other screenwriters, you talk with the producer, the actors, and it has saved me from depression and suicide. And it has been lovely because at the same time that we develop a personal relationship with these creators and writers, I learn a lot of them, which I don't usually do in a solitary work like writing books, novels. Now we are together. We keep in company the other ones. We create. We learn from each other. And it's like playing with your friends. I remember when I was 12-year-old playing with friends and inventing words and saying, now my army invades your little country and now you die and now he dies. And that's what we do. All these adults, each one in a different country. In Colombia, maybe there's a few ones in Colombia or Mexico or the United States or Madrid or even here in Barcelona, but in his own house. We play, we create worlds together, and we help each other to get all along this, and we help other people who's gonna see the movies and the serials, and it has been an opportunity to find a new way to connect with people, even creatively.
It's very nice. How about you, Kalia?
Well, now that Santiago was saying that, I realized that the first part of the pandemic was a sci-fi movie because it was so new to us, and we're feeling like we're living in a sci-fi movie. Now it's more an existential drama, if you actually want to put it in words, and trying to find comic relief. But
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so I don't know, you're right, the medium changes. I've seen that in terms, when it comes to movies, I think it's a hard hit for cinema right now, because people are getting on the platforms and they actually watch Netflix or other similar platforms. I think the medium is going to change, and I don't know if that's going to be for the better. I guess maybe TV is going to get better, but I don't know what's that going to mean for the world of cinema and filmmakers. So that's a question. You're right.
Yeah. I went last week to a mass because a Catholic mass, is that the word in English? A Catholic ceremony?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have been in no religious ceremony for years, out from weddings, but they make a Latin mass, and in the Latin mass, they sing. It's an ancient rite, maybe similar to Orthodox ancient church mass, and I love it so much. I think this is the best show I've seen in my life. They sing. They have loving the clothes. What's the vestuario? How do you say that?
I don't know, the clothes.
Yeah, the way they were dressed, the way they moved, the way they sing. It was like a cabaret, this mass in Friday. And maybe we had to find new shows. We go to Netflix and then go to the mass for entertainment. It was great. I mean, I recommend to everybody. Latin mass.
Amanda, all people have changed completely. We all have to change our behavior, our customs, and everything. But in some countries, it takes more time than others. Do you think that people can easily manage such a sudden and abrupt confrontation, among other things, with themselves, the innermost existence?
I think this is the strangest thing that happens right now. It takes time, and if you are not used to doing this all the time, regularly, every day, then it can be a catastrophe, I think, for your soul, for your psychological health. And I've seen people snap out completely because of the pandemic. And I've read stories and I've heard stories of friends. It needs so much patience and so much meditation, I would say, if it doesn't sound too new age, on what's happening and how we can continue on living, as Kalia said before, that we have to go on living despite all this. And we have to find also new ways of living. For me, deciding to find these new ways doesn't mean that you go with what's happening and you agree and you are like a good pupil, let's say. It means that you can adapt, and then that you hope that when the time comes, you can go back and appreciate more and more what you had before. For me, the problem would be if we go out of this crisis and we keep these structures that made us feel comfortable in a way, because the distance, social distance, after a while could be a way to feel comfortable and detached from the others. So the problem could be much worse if we keep the structures when the problem disappears. And this is one of my greatest fears, how we get out of this new habit we have to be alone or to be so much exposed to social media. Of course, I think that if social media didn't exist, it should have been invented right now. And to speak for myself, in March I opened my first Instagram account. So it came out of a need, an urge to be with other people and to be creative also. I started in my stories, a small 2-3 sentences, short stories about ancient Greece and ancient gods reviving today, very contemporary stories. So it was a way also, just to talk about what we're discussing today, to be creative, to push myself to be creative once a week, to do something for my friends, for a community that shares things with me. So all this is good, but I think we should get rid of it when the time comes to be able to hug each other and be with each other, like in a bodily way, which I hope will happen sooner rather than later.
I agree with Amanda, and especially when it comes to brainstorming and having great ideas, is because people get together and they brainstorm. You need a hub of people in order to be quite inventive. Being alone, you don't produce the same way as a group of people, dreaming together and actually seeing a different way of dealing with everyday life. So I think it's important to come back to our previous lives. I mean, social media shouldn't take over completely. They could be a part of our everyday life, but not to the extent to actually completely take over.
Santiago, what do you think? Social media? No, actually, I really want to ask the three of you. What do you think about literature or books in general? How can they support and assist us under these particular circumstances?
Well, they are the only real planet we can visit. I knew this. This is the feeling I had when I first began to read books for pleasure when I was a child, because we were in a very violent city. There was a war, so we couldn't get out. We had curfews. I knew the curfews and staying home because it's dangerous outside. And that's when I began reading as a way to see. There was not even internet back then in the 80s, and reading was the way to visit, well, Greece, for example, and the United States most of time, and many countries through his writers and filmmakers, and even TV serials, sitcoms, or whatever the stories, the narration is the way to go beyond your walls and the little world you are locked down in. And this time I had the same feelings that with books, with cinema, also with music, with art, all art, but I would say especially the storytelling are windows to the planet outside, are connections to the world that you cannot visit physically, and that's why I love to write them also, to be that for another human being, maybe in China or in South Africa, a guy who never had seen my work before, he can visit because he can read it.
Yeah. It was actually also, it saved me when I was in Colombia in the 90s, in the 80s, reading, and now also. So how about you, Kalia and Amanda? What do you think?
Well, it's a shelter, you know. A book is a shelter. It saves you, can change your life, can be dangerous as well. I don't know what we would do without books, at least for us. I mean, you know, sometimes you don't want to read a book because through the pandemic there were times I said, no, I don't want to read a book, I don't want to do anything. There were those times. But then you open a good book and it's a treasure. You never expected it. That it might mean, or it can mean so much. So in the beginning I was a bit reluctant, I didn't want to read. But then, because I forgot what reading brings, you know, how it expands the universe and extends time. It's magical.
Well, for me, I feel that I rediscovered reading exactly because the time changed, the experience of time changed. I started after a while to read as I read as a young woman, or even as a child, that you feel that you have all the time to read, something that I missed completely for years. And this is something I noticed about time. And also about space. For me, the books were always a special place to be. So this was important because of the problem that we couldn't travel. You can always travel with a book. It may sound like a cliche, but it isn't. You really travel in time and in space. And if I remember the first phase, the first lockdown, the book I worked with, also with creative writing with my students, was Voyage in My Room by Xavier de Maistre. So we worked a lot around the idea of how one can travel around a room and still travel. And that was really very pampering, very, very, very nice feeling for the students also, and for me, a different kind of discussion. But then in this second lockdown, I work a lot with The Magic Mountain of Thomas Mann, because I realized this social aspect of the pandemic. It's like we are all sick, and even if we're not sick, someone we know is sick. And I believe this book can really make a difference in realizing this aspect of sickness, death, how important life is, that there is still love and sex and all these things that we dissociate from life when things are not going well. So if you get into Magic Mountain, and now I think everybody has the time to go into these very long readings that were also written in a time when everything was slower and people thought slower and also deeper. So I think these kind of books we can revisit and we can learn a lot about our humanity.
You're brave. I wouldn't take the Magic Mountain. I just said nothing with diseases or dying people or pandemics, please. I went the other side. I went to, I made a personal course of history of the humanity. I discovered this book that everybody had discovered before, but Sapiens by Noah Yuval Hariri, I guess that's the name, and History of Music, but by Ted Gioia, and histories of the Renaissance by Stephen Greenblatt, and a book that speaks lots about Greece, written by a Spanish writer, She's called Irene Vallejo and has written a history, El Infinito en un Junco, which is the history of the origin of the books, which is an origin linked to Macedonia, Alejandria, Greece, ancient Greece, and writing and bibliotheques and books. And it's great. It's like making a little master in universal story, which I would probably never have done without the pandemic. And you just suddenly have the time to look all around, and then you go back to your previous readings and you understand them better or in a new way. Those are readings I recommend to everybody interested in books, music, art, or human beings.
Very interesting, those books. Kalia, do you have any special book that you have read that in these special times?
Well, a special book. Well, I tried to read a few books, but I needed something completely new. I watched plenty of films, actually. Films I've watched before, and I actually rewatched them. I saw Mama Roma with, and actually there's a great scene at the end where Anna Magnani says, actually somebody tells her when her son is dead, and she realizes it, l'acqua passa. L'acqua passa. Everything goes on, you know, life will still go on no matter what.
Yeah. Let's talk about El Mundo de Ayer, El Mundo de Mañana, or Cosmos to Xes, or Cosmos to Abreo, or the world of yesterday, the world of tomorrow. How was, I mean, you were inspired by the pandemic, so tell me, how was this inspiration? And you know, like, we have an anthology of 60 texts that are around this topic. So why do you think our public that are listening to us should take this book and read it and enjoy it? Because, you know, we have very funny stories and nice stories like the one that you share with us, Santiago, that is very nice. And we also have I mean, we have completely different styles, and we have poetry, and so please tell me, how did you feel inspired with this pandemia, and how do you value this book?
Okay, the thing is,
I get the big mystery. Sorry,
we don't know the book already, right? we only know what we wrote about. So I think we are very eager also to look at what everybody wrote.
Exactly.
For me, it's like also like a game of cards to see how is every other writer conceiving what's happening. I think I misunderstood it when you first asked me, Adriana. I thought I should write an essay, and this is what I wrote. I wrote something between essay and story.
Which is perfect. Yes, very nice. It's beautiful, by the way. Loca.
Yeah. But I think even misunderstandings are good in this, because the whole thing is a big misunderstanding still for us. And I don't know how we are going to look at it after some years. This is also a nice perspective in the words of tomorrow. I mean, imagine in 20 years or 30 years, and the children at their schools, they have to talk about what happened in 2019 to 2020. It will be a kind of history, and how all this is going to be perceived. I saw a funny and strange also advertisement in the German television about people of my generation after 40 years, very old, talking to the young children about how it was and how they had to stay inside, like a simulation to a war era. So I feel we don't know, and what is interesting about the book is that it will remain as something that we can go back to as a testimony of the crazy things we lived through. This is my idea.
Maybe,
Well, actually, this is what we were looking for, right? We
Yeah.
were looking for different opinions, different styles, and different ways of seeing the pandemic. And I think we got it in this book.
Yes, I remember my first impact, which is what I write about, was how we are four in my house, not a big house, 100 meters. So suddenly, each one had a different computer or tablet or phone, and each one was in a different country, because each one was maybe in fantasy. My friend was playing football with friends, and he had a big screen, and he was the Barcelona, and another friend somewhere were the Madrid. And my daughter was dancing with other people who were other friends at her home, were sharing this game of dancing. And while I was making my screenwriting with other people, and my wife was working in another screen, and I was shocked how somehow the whole planet was at your house, and you were isolated but had more communication than ever, in a strange way. And each member of this home was in a different place with different people, in a different inhabitate in a different planet.
Yeah. I really enjoyed every single text. I have enjoyed the maximum. They're all different, beautiful, and I'm sure that everybody will enjoy it. Kalia, how was it, the inspiration during the pandemic? How do you feel writing in this period?
It was hard, but actually it was what kept you safe in a way, because the mind travels a lot. So at least you were focused on something, and once you got yourself into it, you wouldn't want to leave it, because reality itself was more dangerous than the thoughts in your mind. So for me, it was a good period, actually, in terms of productivity. Wrote a few short stories, also worked on that pace. So it saved me in many ways. And I think that's what writing does to us, writers, and art. It's like you get to be a little god, actually. You create your own worlds. Suddenly you actually, you're the one responsible for everything for once.
And it's better, because reality stinks.
Now
I
more
had
than
to publish a
ever.
book. I had to publish a book, but we had to stop it because we couldn't make a tour. And I had theater piece, and they suddenly were not theaters anymore. So we are waiting for the world to come back next year to publish and put that into the theater. I don't know where they are going to put all the books and films and pieces and art that is waiting for 21, because many things have gotten postponed.
So this means, Santiago, that you really worked a lot during the pandemic. You are the opposite of me, who didn't work.
No, many of my friends had lots of problems to write, of concentration, because of the atmosphere. But I was, in fact, I usually write to create, to be in a different place. So it was great to have the obligation to get to a different place. It was productive. And at the same time, with all the social life cut so much, I could do long walking around with myself, thinking about my thing. And so, as you said, I needed it. It saved me somehow of the other things I was losing. Writing gave me a sense.
Adriana, I want to ask you as well. We've been talking and actually talking about ourselves as we usually do as writers. What
we're
about
writers.
Yeah, I know. What about you, Adriana? How was the lockdown for you? How was the first or the second wave of the pandemic, and where are you situated right now, actually?
Well, because of my husband's work, we are here in the Kingdom of Bahrain. So it's a completely different world than Athens or than Catalonia or than even Colombia. So it has been, we have never been in a mandatory lockdown, but we have been taking care of ourselves very much. There are more strict measures than in Athens. When I came in September in Athens, I was feeling very unsafe. I have to be honest, because coming from here, that the measures were very strict. Coming to Greece, that the measures were not so strict, I felt a little bit unsafe. But then, you know, you get it fast and you feel also happy again of being free. We are here living in bubbles. You know, we have our bubbles, we have our friends, and then this is with the people we meet. And the restaurants are open, but they have a specific number of people that you can visit. So, but we didn't have summer. You know, like you were enjoying summer in Athens, in Greece, going around. We were here, closed in the house, not going out or anything like this. So I missed my summer, and I have to be honest that this book saved me, actually. You know, your writing saved
At
me.
least we have one.
So this book has been a savior also for me, and I guess for all the team that we have been working for this, which I am completely grateful for them, and I'm grateful to you that this dream has been truly reality. So we missed going to Greece in Christmas. We were going to go to Greece in Christmas, but because of the circumstances, we're gonna stay here. I hope my son can come. He's in Scotland, so I hope he can make it. He can come and be here, just the four of us, and with our friends, which are our family here. So I really hope we can have a nice Christmas as you know, missing my family in Colombia, of course, my mom and my brothers. So yeah, actually, I have read way more. Normally, when I make Leah, I don't have time to read any book because I'm running like crazy trying to make Leah. So this year, I have been able to sit and read and enjoy reading again. And creating this book has been a beautiful adventure.
Wow.
Yes. So I think we are running out of time.
Yeah,
More or less.
We are.
Yes.
More or less. So before leaving, I just want to thank our supporters, because without them, it would be impossible to make this book. And these are especially the Embassy of Spain and Instituto Cervantes de Atenas. Because of thanks to their sponsorship, we have made this book a reality, and also the support of the embassies of Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and Portugal, and Escuela Abanico, Escuela de Lenguas y Culturas Iberoamericanas Abanico, al Instituto Camoes. And I want to give a big thank you also to the team, which are Cristina Conde, Eduardo Lucena, Petros Marcaris, Lena Mazziori, which is there with you, Leonora Moreleon, Constantinos Palologos, Nana Papanicolaou, Juan Vicente Piqueras, and Nikos Pratsinis. And especially to the Book Fair of Thessaloniki that has given us this space, and to Grigoris Bekos, which has been a wonderful mentor and helper with this book, and Castagnotis Publishers to create this book that I hope you will all enjoy from December. And then you will tell me how you feel about the book, because this book saved me, and I'm sure that all the readers will enjoy it very much, as we all did when we were doing it.
I hope we celebrate in the next Thessaloniki book fair with fish in front of the sea and red Sina.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
And our next Leah Festival as well, which hopefully will be in 2021, either in June or in October. We will see. We will let you know the dates of our 13th Leah Festival and the 18th book, international fair book of Thessaloniki.
Right, looking forward
looking
to this
forward.
all. Should we thank everybody now?
Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, ladies.
And see you soon, hopefully.
See you soon.
I hope so.
Thank you,
Ciao.
Santiago. Thank you,
Bye.
Katia. Thank you,
Bye.
Amal. It was
Bye.
been
Bye.
a pleasure having you today.
For us too.
See you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Μη βλέπετε τώρα ένα μεγάλο και ώριμο άνθρωπο, έναν πρόεδρο, έναν εκπαιδευτικό. Ήμουν και εγώ παιδί. Και όταν ήμουν στην ηλικία σας, όλοι λένε ότι ήμουν και πολύ άτακτο παιδί. Με πολλές σκανταλιές και λίγο απίθαρκο. Μάλλον θα μπορούσα να πω πολύ απίθαρκο. Μου άρεσε πάρα πολύ το ποδόσφαιρο. Δεν ήθελα να γίνω ποδοσφαιριστής, αλλά κάθε φορά που από το δωμάτιο του σπιτιού μου άκουγα τα παιδιά να έχουν μαζευτεί στο γήπεδο, τα παρατούσα όλα. Και έτρεχα να ανταμώσω όλη εκείνη την πιτσιρικαρία της ηλικίας μου, η οποία με τα κοντά παντελονάκια αναζητούσε το όνειρο στο παιχνίδι της μπάλας, δηλαδή του ποδοσφαίρου, και επέστρεφε στο σπίτι με ματωμένα γόνατα και τα καλάμια ραβδισμένα από τις κλωτσιές των άλλων. Ήταν μια ωραία εποχή, η οποία όμως κάποια στιγμή έπρεπε να αναπληρωθεί, γιατί και οι ελλείψεις από την πολλή μπάλα χρειάζονται και λίγο περισσότερο διάβασμα.